Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art. I just want to do a little update on Jane Austen July and how my reading has been going so far. I'm recording this on the 11th of July, and I've been able to finish The Genius of Jane Austen, which looks at the stage influence that is present in the writings of Jane Austen. And that was very enjoyable. And my favorite chapter, though, was actually the last chapter when it was talking about the impact her novels have had on Hollywood, and especially the classic films that came out in the year like 95 and 96, I believe, with the miniseries, as well as a couple of films that came out that were very well done. So I overall enjoyed that book quite a bit. I think my favorite quote of the whole book came in that final chapter when it talked about all the films that this book has inspired, or that Jane Austen has inspired, and that one day we might actually see an entire channel dedicated only to Jane Austen adaptations. And, I'm like, sign me up for that. That sounds great. I don't know if I really have a lot to say about it, the book itself, though, except it is a bit more academic, and it looks at the influences that the stage has had in her writings, and it looks at each of her novels. And so overall, it was good. I guess the only thing I would want is more of that last chapter. I want to see more and hear more about the movie and film adaptations. I think in part because that's the one I'm familiar with, and that's the style and the content that I'm familiar with. Now, of course, movies wouldn't have had an impact on her writing, obviously. The thing I'm more interested in reading is her impact on movies versus the stage's impact in her writings. It was a worthwhile read if you are a diehard Janeite and want to read more about her. This book definitely is worth the reading. And then I was able to finish Northanger Abbey, and I got to say this is my second or third time reading it, and it just still didn't really connect with me. I laughed a few more parts, and I'm beginning to understand more of the context, so that was enjoyable. But overall, I'm just not sure this is one of my favorite Jane Austen books. Now, one thing that did help me was after I read the book, I went and watched the film. I believe it was the 2007 or 8 version starring Felicity Jones. And that movie was really wonderful. I really enjoyed watching it. I almost wanted to go back and reread Northanger Abbey after watching the film, because I feel like it helped me have a summary and a visual summary of what's happening in the story. It gave me faces to put onto the different characters that maybe just weren't quite as memorable in this book as like Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility and Emma would be. It could just be my brain is fried. These are all options, but don't be ashamed. I don't think it's a problem if you're having trouble understanding the classic. Go and watch an adaptation. I think it would be helpful to you, as it was to me, to help you understand the ins and outs. Watch something that's a more faithful adaptation. Now, I really enjoyed the movie, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about it. The overall, it looked like a film that had been filmed older than like 2007. It looked real grainy, and I'm not sure if that's because that's just what the technology was for the BBC back in 2007 or what. But I thought that was kind of weird. And the opening credits, I almost thought that it looked more like a fan film quality to it, like something you can make with any kind of free video editing software, with the opening credits with like the names of everyone. So I thought that was strange. But and then in the opening scene, I thought I caught a couple of anachronistic moments. Like, I think they mentioned baseball and she was playing baseball. Maybe it was supposed to be cricket, but it looked like baseball to me. And, then there was another line. I can't remember what it was now, but I thought that I don't think that was invented back in Jane Austen's time. But, I don't know. There's a couple of things that just kind of threw me off. Now, this is me just being very nitpicky. I acknowledge that because overall I really did enjoy the movie. But I thought a couple of those things were weird. And then I had to laugh. I think it was her dad who said right at the beginning there that she almost looks pretty today. And I'm like, oh man, that's rough. But they really wanted to drive home the point that Catherine Morland is not your typical girl. She was, I don't know, she thought really wanted her to be average. I liked how they would have like flashbacks or like daydreams of gothic tropes that try to portray the way that Jane Austen makes fun of the gothic literature in Northanger Abbey, and they really, and so I think that was effective, although so it felt almost disconnected. I feel like Jane Austen's in the novel, it weaves it in better, but then that was Jane Austen. I also like the line near the beginning about her parents are like, "Oh, do you think she reads too much? Should we be concerned?" And the other parents like, "Oh no, it's fine." It's just very obviously setting up what we are to think about that. So it's almost a little forced, I thought. And I love that when she gets to Bath, another line she says something along the lines of where she's looking out the window, she's excited to be in the big city, and she says, "So many people, I wonder who they are and what their story is." Something along those lines. I love that line because I get those same thoughts when I go to the big city, and see all the crowds of people and how just for a brief moment our lives interconnect and touch each other. Then they go off, I go off, and we never see each other again. And I wonder just for a moment what their life is like, what life they're living, and I just think that was a really neat line. I like that. I laughed off and on throughout the film, which is always a good thing. I thought the film did miss something. It really missed that narrative snark that Jane Austen is able to have. Again, it's not a bad thing to say you're not as good of a writer as Jane Austen. I mean, very few people are, but this is in some areas where the film fails. I liked, but visually, it was absolutely gorgeous, as most Jane Austen films are. That's one thing I think even a bad adaptation gets right, such as the film of which we do not speak. Even as terrible as that adaptation was, visually it was very beautiful. So that was good. It gets all the scenes, the dresses, the houses, all that we come to love and expect in a Jane Austen film was there. The dialogue was pretty, for the most part, was enjoyable, especially when they are quoting her verbatim or close to verbatim. I think they get it. It really shines then. I like when Catherine goes to Northanger Abbey. You really get the sense of the sprawling coldness of the house of this almost castle like house. And I love at dinner when she is so uncomfortable, doesn't really know how to behave or like what spoon to use, and Henry's sister, I can't remember her name now, kind of helps her along, and Henry Tilney gives her some encouraging smiles, and like it's like they're saying, "Hey, we see you, we know you're uncomfortable, but we're here, we're gonna help you." And I really like that little touch. That was really sweet. But it did feel kind of jarring towards the end, and we're gonna get into some spoiler territories here when Henry realizes that Catherine thought that his father killed his wife or his mother. That seemed very sudden. Like I don't feel like the tension was really built up, or the mystery was built up. It was almost like 20 minutes of the film were missing, and if I hadn't read the book, I would have been left. I think I would have been left very confused as to what leap she just made there, because you don't really see. Like you see her having these dreams and you see her in the castle, but you don't really see the two connecting like it does in the book. And they have their little argument, and Catherine goes out and cries. And then I love when his sister finds her crying, and she's immediately concerned for her welfare, and is asking, are you okay? And she's just a nice person. And I love to see that, these nice people coming from such a terrible father, one who's very cold and cruel. And I love that they don't accept that that's how they have to behave, like Henry's brother did. That's just nice. But so the ending is pretty quick, but I think it's very sweet. And Felicity Jones is just so sweet in this, and how she is smiling. She's happy. She's excited to finally get her true love. So all's well in the end, as you come to expect in a Jane Austen novel. Overall, I'm glad I watched it. Like I said, it helped me get the plot straight in my head, where that I think now going back and reading it, if and when I go and reread the book, which I certainly plan to do, and next time I might just watch the movie first and then go and read the book. I hope you don't think that's sacrilege, but I think an adaptation like that was very helpful to me. So if that might be of help to you as well. And then what I'm doing right now is I'm reading, I believe it's called The Irresistible Charm of Miss Jane Austen. And I'm doing a buddy read of that with Mary. And her channel, I believe, is Booking Through Life. And I'll leave a link to her channel below. I'm really enjoying it, and we've just started doing a buddy read on that book, so I'll talk more about it later. But essentially, Jane Austen gets transported to the future from her time period, which is, as I've been reminded in the last video, is not the Edwardian. I don't know why I was thinking Edwardian, but it is the Regency era. Too many kings to keep straight. It's all the same by the end of the day, I suppose. Anyway, I'm enjoying that read very much, but I'll save that and talk about it in a future video. And then in a couple days, I'm going to start Camp Austen, which I'm excited about. And then I just began reading the Juvenilia of Jane Austen. I read Jack and Alice this morning. There was a really great quote there that said that she had it was something like she had many fine and lovely qualities, but sobriety wasn't one of them. And I don't know, that one really made me laugh. So hilarious, loved it, and I'm looking forward to exploring some of Jane Austen's work that I haven't read yet. So that's my update on Jane Austen July. Let me know how your reading is going. Comment below, and we'll keep the conversation going there. And until next time, happy reading, everyone, and take care.